All right, I just want to emphasize I am not trying to spoil most of the plot. This is just going to deal with the broad strokes. But if you want no spoilers, then don't listen. And really, there seems to be some difference here of how the plot will ultimately end up. So I want to be clear on that. So here are the essentials. So let's get to the first question. Is Stu returning? The answer is no. However, and we'll see how it really does this, but apparently in the film, Sidney thinks Sue is returning. So the new Ghostface, or I'm assuming there's going to probably be at least two Ghostfaces. The Ghostface in question is basically trying to fool or trick Sidney to thinking Stu is returning or has come back. And for most of the film, the audience is also going to be guessing, did Stu return? But ultimately, it's going to be a fake Stu. But I'm more interested in the Gale aspect. So where does she come in? Because you have to think through, aside from Easter egg, why would Gale be even part of the plot? Well, get ready for it. And it does tie in. And I will say this is confirmed through several different things too. Yes, the TV spot, but we've seen her interview Sidney before. But apparently there's some kind of talk show format. And that's important because we have Mark, who's now officially listed in the cast. And Mark is going to turn out to be very critical. So here is the idea or theory. So for whatever reason, Gale is caught up in this kind of cancel culture hysteria. And the twins are working with her as interns. So now here's where there's a split. There are two theories. One of them, I don't know if people are going to accept this because I think that's a little too radical, but apparently Gale is helping the Ghostface. So is Gale one of the Ghostface killers, or is she accidentally helping the Ghostface? Don't know. But in one version, they're basically kind of villainous. But apparently they are trying to help Sidney. So the twins and Gale basically try to work with Sidney to trick the Ghostface. So I am guessing, don't know for sure, when we see that interview, that's going to be very late in the film. Although again, with Scream, you can play with time and jump back and forth. So it may actually be shown at the beginning, but in terms of the plot, this is near the end. So they're going to do that to lure out the Ghostface. Okay, that's one theory. But again, it's a possibility that Gale could be, in a weird way, the villain. Okay, that's one theory. The other theory is, which makes a little bit more sense, would be they're actively trying to help Sidney. However, accidentally, they are doing things that help the Ghostface. So who is the Ghostface? So I don't know the exact identity at this point. However, although we're seeing the mental hospital, the way I understand it, and again, this is various people, Wolfman Got Nards and some other YouTubers, what's going to happen is there's really two mental patients who are critical here. One of them stays in the hospital or whatever center where Sidney goes to and acts kind of like an oracle or prophet figure and keeps giving them clues. So they keep going back to this person and they keep giving clues to the real Ghostface killer. So who is this Ghostface killer? Well, I think this is frankly very lame, but I think they've given enough clues. It's pretty obvious what they're doing. So Stu's voice is real, as far as I know, because we do have the actor. So the voice acting is real. It is really Stu. However, the actual Ghostface is this kind of wannabe Stu, kind of a clone. Make of that what you will. So it's just a guy who physically really resembles Stu remarkably well, but it's not Stu. So I don't know if they're going to use the actual actor with different makeup, or they're just using a different actor who is using Stu's voice. It's a lot of possibilities, but it's not Stu. But this killer is going to fool Sidney and the audience for a lot of the movie. And we may think, did they bring back Stu? At least in terms of the main story, no. So at the end, the real Ghostface is going to be revealed as fake Stu, and they stop. Now, beyond that, I don't know if the twins are going to get killed, right? Is Gale going to get killed, or even Sydney? Also, I'm talking about the main plot. So it could be in the post-credits, they will bring back Stu. That I don't know. But Stu is vital in the main plot, but not technically real Stu. And as far as the Roman factor, that I don't know. But he's listed officially, as is Dewey. So I would assume the obvious. They're just going to bring in kind of flashbacks to answer those questions. But to my knowledge, there's no attempt to resurrect Roman or Dewey. So, or Stu, again, in the main plot. And that's where we are. So why do we think, or why do I think this is true? Well, it does seem on brand for Scream to sort of take on a contemporary topic. And obviously, cancel culture is sort of in the environment with the Scream franchise itself. So it's on brand, and I didn't remember this, but as I was gathering the notes and research, I remember, oh, there's actually a Michael Myers tie. I'll do that in another video, but it's fascinating. So this is kind of an old idea that Kevin literally had. That is documented. That's proven. So that's not speculation. So if you know the way writers work in Hollywood, they don't just get rid of old ideas. So this would make a lot of sense. He just took an old idea from an older script and just plugged it back in. However, there's a lot of problems here. For one thing, this doesn't quite make sense with Scream 6, because in Scream 6, we are told Sydney is hiding out. So she should not be having that interview. So why is she going public? Well, apparently, again, this is the theory that Gale did something intentionally or accidentally to reveal her identity and put her in danger. So there you go. So Gale is playing kind of a unheroic role in this story. So there we are. What's the downside? And again, I'm not judging the film yet, but what's the downside? Well, they've done this trick too many times now, right? They've sort of done these kind of mocking Hollywood or mocking the conventions of Hollywood in Scream 2, Scream 3, Scream 4 technically as well. And this has a little bit of shadings of Scream 5. However, Kevin is on record, he really loves Scream 6. I did not like Scream 6, but if you did see Scream 6, I'm not going to spoil that movie, but basically there's a huge like maze of hints that lead ultimately to the killer/killers. Not going to go further than that. I thought those twists really didn't add up, were pretty silly, but apparently he does like the film. So that would suggest several things, that like that film, we're going to have a maze of twists, which are misleading, and, quote, the good guy turns out to be the bad guy. So seems like they're going to follow that structure. Also, there's like a big confrontation at the end. So my guesswork would be that Gale and the twins are going to survive for the ultimate confrontation with Sydney and the daughter. Beyond that, I don't know who lives, who survives. That I don't know. And there we go. So if that is what's going to happen, is this a good idea? Well, I do think it's good they're not resurrecting Stu in a blunt fashion. If they're going to do it, they should be careful. And Matthew Lillard has not really confirmed a lot, but he's definitely going to be in the film. So how could Stu be there but not be there? Well, it's a lot of possibilities, which I don't think they're doing it literally in the film, but it could be the killer's using AI technology, has voice samples, right? Or for whatever reason is able to get some media with Stu, whether old tapes, old audio, so on and so forth. So they have enough material, either with AI or old footage, which is kind of ironic, to fool Sydney to thinking, oh, is this really him? So the Ghostface voice is not really who we think it is for a long time in the film. Could this work? Yeah, sure. I mean, voice samples can be manipulated. I would think there's going to be problems because unless it's an AI voice that is, which would be also a problem, like how did the AI voice get enough of Stu's voice? Like you'd have to pump the computer full of, there's a lot of questions. So we'd have to do like some science fiction. Now, Scream has always bent the rules pretty radically. So we'll just have to assume in this universe they have different kind of AI technology where you give maybe 3 sentences, which you can do. Find enough audio samples of Stu's voice and give it to the computer and say, just become Stu's voice, and there you go. You're off and running. That's not how it works. That's really hard to do that, but there you go. So for whatever reason, they're able to find or imitate the voice. So, because there's got to be moments where you can't use the Ghostface voice, because that can be obviously manipulated. But Sydney has to know it is Stu's voice. So for some reason, or however they're going to do it, she's going to be tricked. So they are going to use Stu's actual voice through the actor, but it's not really him. So there you go. So that answers the trailer, and it's like, wait, that is Stu's voice. I think it is Stu's voice. That's not going to be manipulated through AI. But in the story, they're either going to use his actual voice or an AI equivalent. And there you go. Is this really a good idea? I don't think so. It seems kind of lame. We're just bending the rules. And if you're going to bend the rules this far, why not just bring back Stu? But those are the theories. But Gale will play a very weird, kind of sinister role. And the question is, really the debate is it intentional, or did she just do something and accidentally bringing back Ghostface? There you go. It's time to debate it. There we are. Scream 7. I am not impressed, to quote Superman.